possible, like for example, I don't know, when your parents separated,
Yeah.
I assume you stayed with your mom.
Yeah.
So is it possible for you, not like you experiencing the absence of your father?
Yeah.
Is it possible for a child to separate themselves from the drama of the parents and still love them at the same level and try to feed from both the parents?
It's really hard because I think also sometimes what a lot of young people tend to do is just shut off the emotion and the hurt and just not deal with it.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you do that, when you do decide, it will come back, like regardless. It doesn't matter whether you're 20, 30, 50, like you're gonna have to deal with it somehow.
Yeah.
But I think it's better to deal with it early than later, because if you do suppress it and just leave it, when it comes back later, like it's gonna just come back worse, I think. Yeah, so
It does, because
Yeah.
for myself, I felt like I still remember the last time that I had to engage my dad. It got to a point where it's exactly what you said. It's cancerous to you, where when you start to have these thoughts to say, what does my parents think about me? Do they love me? Or what am I really missing out? Because sometimes it's hard to, I always say, you can't love someone when you don't love yourself. So you cannot give what you don't have.
True.
So at the same time, I had to remind myself to say, you can't look for fresh waters in bitter waters. So what has happened in the past is past, but I can decide to open a new page with my dad and to open a new relationship with my siblings, with my brothers, to say, hey, what do you feel? Because my mom, when she passed away, my brother was 2 months old. And it's only recent when Mother's Day was coming, and this is now 22 years later, my brother reached out to me and said, you know what, I'm dealing with a lot of bitterness and guilty. And I said, well, why? It's like, I felt like I was responsible for the death of my mom, because my mom, they had to cut my brother out and my mom died. So, and I had to walk with him to say, it's not your responsibility. In as much as the absence of your mother had nothing to do with you. Life is precious. So it's all those situations where, to me, I never saw it in that way, and I never knew that he was dealing with that. But this is a kid that is always quiet. He doesn't want to share these emotions. And it's now a journey that now I have to work with him to say, the first thing you need to accept is, because for him, he was refusing to accept that the death of my mom was because the time was up. He kept hanging it on him to say, I'm responsible for that. So now you start to feel like you have sabotaged other siblings to say, I'm responsible for their absence. But it's those things where it hit me hard. I never saw it coming. I never thought that's what he was dealing with, what he was going through with. So now we have to bring everything backwards to say, there's certain things that you need to accept and certain things that you don't need to accept, and also make a decision and face those emotions, allow them to come out, because sometimes we don't allow emotions to come out. People, when they're hurt, they don't want them to come out. And the sad thing as well that does my head is, especially African parents on the male side of our fathers, they have a big wall where we can't be friends. We can't talk on that level. It's, I tell you what to do. It's only my way. You're my child. I don't listen to you. And in them thinking that they're smart in doing that, or they think it's making you a man, that's not making me a man. That's actually making me to be resentful towards you. So for me, I've found out that it's more harder to reach out to our fathers as compared to our mothers. But as time goes on, the relationships changes. Like now, my father listens to me. I tell him stuff, and he listens, or he asks for a perspective. But it didn't come easy. But between the time where I wanted him to listen to me, and I've gone for, sorry to confess, but I've gone for almost a year, never called him, just a text message. So it's it's things that I don't say,
Yeah.
but it's a good platform where maybe there's someone out there who's also battling with those things, where it's so easy to put them in that category to say, I want to deal with you, I'm sick and tired of you not trying to listen to me. But we need that relationship where we can talk.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I feel like I lost the whole complete year just avoiding this guy, not wanting to talk to him when I would have just expressed myself. Maybe you would have listened. So
I've got a question for you guys.
Sorry.
So obviously looking at like men and women, I feel like we're different. Women are like pretty vocal. I think when it comes to communication, women are pretty vocal. Like, you know, you meet up with your friends and I think we freely talk about our issues or things we're struggling with. But I don't think it's the same for men. Like, say with something like that, do you find it easy to just say, if you can't talk to your dad, is there another, like a friend that you can talk to? Like
I'm quite close to my uncle.
Yeah.
I feel like my uncle plays my father role. But I wouldn't say women are more vocal. I say women are more detailed, and men are not. That's
not provocative.
Yeah.
All right.
I say women are more detailed,
Yeah.
and women and men are not. You see, that's like if we go to a party and my girlfriend or someone asked me to say, oh, so what was Miranda wearing? I'm like, oh, she was just dressed. She just look good. That's meant for you.
Yeah.
But girls want, oh, your nails, your eyebrows, your weave. So I think women are more detailed, and men, we are not. And that's where the problem is.
Yeah.
So the secret is to try to get into or creating an atmosphere where you make the men comfortable so they can speak themselves out. So which is now what we need to fight for, is that male, to advocate for male to speak out, to let men know that in you speaking out and airing out what you're feeling is not weakness, because that's what we're raised. Raised
no, but I'm saying sometimes I feel like men actually don't open up about certain things because it's perceived as
weakness.
But it's like women, it's like something very normal. That's why I was saying with things like that, do you find it difficult to actually just talk about it?
I do because for me, I think I share it with some of my friends who are close to me, but this is first time I've literally gone public and speaking like this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh yeah. So
Okay.
I feel like now I'm trapped into saying things that
No,
I've never said. But I'm actually feeling good. You feel the heaviness going away, because I believe there's so many young people who are in the same boat. So that's why for me, for a long time, I've always advocated to say we need to train our young men to speak out. And it's not weakness. It's not, don't worry about people, whatever they're going to say.
Yeah.
But learn to speak out, because when you speak out, you get help. But at the same time, we have said women are more detailed. We also need more women that can understand us and not dog us, and also understand us and give us that platform to say, hey, if I'm here to listen to you, I won't judge you. Because I think that's where the biggest problem is, where we're scared to be judged.
Yeah, I think on both ends of the discussion you guys were having, the main things that I've been picking is, I think, just communication and just being upfront with each other, because like you were saying, we have to make a change in some of the things that we grew up through. You know, and since this topic is based on absent parents and everything, some of these things have just been carried generation to generation and hasn't been unnoticed, you know. Hence bringing us to this platform where mainly the communication, which is definitely the first thing, that was a communication breakdown, because we trapped all these emotions, trapped all these views, and we can't even share it with anyone. And then it creates someone out of you that you tend to exert out there into the world, and then it's seen as a normal thing, which I'm guessing I'm taking from what your dad was. I'm a tough guy, do what I say, don't ask questions, you have to be a certain way, follow what I did because it worked for me, you know, to the point where obviously you didn't talk to him for a year, or you were resentful, and you got to a point where you had to confront him. You know, it's very, very important that we actually put some of these ideas, and I'm glad that you guys brought all these ideas onto this platform, because it is able to actually reach out to people out there that they're not alone. Everybody on this panel seem to have gone through all these things, and it's all related.
But the exciting thing about it that
Which
shocked me. I still remember when I spoke to my dad, his reply to me was, I'm trying to recall his actual words. Because when I was telling him to say, how come when I tell you this, you don't speak
Don't
back,
respond.
you don't. So he ended up admitting to say, it's not like I don't want to reply, but it's very overwhelming to me. And to him, he said there was a point in time in his life where he felt like, why are my kids not coming to me? So for him, he was seeing it different, because for him he thought, maybe because their mother is not there, they feel like I'm not equipped enough. So it's a tough one, because we also make our own conclusions, and he also has his own perspective.
Breakdown.
And the beauty of thing is we are all agreeing that it comes back to communication.
Yeah.
But communication is a skill where
It has to be learned.
it has to be learned.
Tried out
And
for it to work well.
And trust me, I had to learn communication in a hard way. When in my 20s, I was just reckless. I felt like I'll just say whatever I want and just share my heart out, and whether I get in trouble or not.
It doesn't matter.
Said what I said.
Get it out there.
But
No,
but
it's,
but the older you get more refiner, and you start to be more smarter and
Mature.
mature, and start to be aware of
Use
yourself.
audience.
But I really feel like this is a topic that we might need to unpack more.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because parents, they play a big role. They determine how you turn out to be, how your career is going to be. Because imagine some kids, I went to school, some kids were smart, but their parents didn't afford for them to go to uni. And these were guys who were like top of the class. And you start to see the danger of when parents are not equipped, and as compared to some parents that are equipped. So, not to say that that's how life will turn out. Life is fair to everyone, and opportunity happens to everyone. But how a parent sets themselves up determine the rate at which their child will go. You see? So for you, I actually recommend you and applaud you for actually going down and sit with your parents, considering that your parents had separated. You see? And it also takes a strong woman to actually advocate to be happy for you to speak to your father, because some women will be so bitter to say, you can't
Because
talk
you're out,
to him.
that's it. If you talk to him, you're dead.
You're dead, you're not going to come into my house. So there's just so much stuff that I've learned from you guys, and
The knowledge is coming on this end, because there's some things I'm like, I did not think about that. That is actually very, it's good. It's good. And I'm actually glad, like I said, on this edition that, you guys are sharing your wisdom, sharing your ideas, and everything that's encompassing this topic. And it's right. I think this topic really needs to be unpacked. It really needs to be unpacked a bit more, because I think there's a lot of areas that, with the absent, parents that we have in our lives, there's a lot of factors that are, getting us to this result, which I think with more voices and with more ideas, more perspective and more lenses, we'll be able to hopefully scratch, at least, if not just scratch the surface, but at least get to a common understanding as to understand why it is like that and what we can do to actually improve that.
Yeah,
this is really heavy.
because look, there are things that for me, I think I saw the shift when my mom died, and the father that I had before my mom died and the father that I had after my mom died. My father completely changed. The guy that he was before his wife died and the guy that he became was totally different. And there are certain things that, the lessons that I've taken from my father that are very outstanding to me till today. Like, my father was the very first guy to ever tell me that you don't lay hands on women. You love women. You don't argue with them. And there are certain lessons that till today, my father was the first guy to say to me, this is how things are happening. Because I still remember when we were young, my brother punched my sister, my dad had to smack all of us. Because what he was doing was just sending the message to say, you don't lay hands on women. So there are those lessons where it's what your parent has taught you that will stick out to you. Because if you're in a house where a father deals with things by shouting at your mom, that kid can move around thinking that it's okay for me to yell at women. So then we have a precarious behavior that's very contagious that we need to stop because of the certain things that parents do.
Certainly.
So I'm so curious to say, how are we going to help young people to be aware of this?
By using this platform to share all these things and the experience that people have gone through. Because I think if we don't do that, people will not be aware. People will not know. And when someone doesn't know, they'll be stuck in their ways until someone sheds a light onto it. And then they'll probably realize, hopefully, that this road that I'm taking is actually the good one. Because like I said, some things will just always repeat themselves and we'll be like, oh, because it's in the nature of a parent, it's in the nature of a woman, it's in the nature of a man, or it's just the nature of how things should go, which is not the right thing, you know. And obviously also for Irene, you know, the courage that you had to even talk to your mom. A lot of girls will probably not do that. They'll just follow, oh, you know what, you broke up with my mom, you divorced and everything, I must stick with my mom, screw you, go away, you know that thing. So that's also another lesson that a lot of people have to really take, because you'll be surprised to find a lot of people that are bitter, they can get to the stage of talking to, you know, for both of you to talk to their parents and say, hey, look, I understand these are the things that happened. Why is it that happened? And express your feelings and your emotions and everything that has worried you over these years. So to actually take the step is actually applaudable, and for both of you to actually get to the stage where you are even sharing, to even unpack some of these things that you've gone through, is rich in content to the point where hopefully with the listeners and the viewers on this, they can take something home and they can actually read the first brick of building that foundation of understanding and improving and making a change. And the only thing we can always do is just talk about these topics and keep that
question for Irene. I really want to understand it, because if you ever felt at some point that I need my father in my life, not to say you're taking sides, but just to say I need that fatherly guidance or that fatherly love.
Father figure.
Yeah.
And if it's a yes, what would have triggered?
No, I think you did both your parents. I think obviously there's certain things that your mum can give you that your dad can't, and vice versa. There's just certain supports. It's just better from the other. But I feel like it was more in the teens. And if now, I don't think really now. I think when it first happened, probably I just had a lot of questions. I remember a lot of questions, kind of like why? And then it spiraled into all men should die in a hole. Yeah, I really hated men, honestly. Obviously it affected me when I got into relationships on my own.
But have you dealt with it?
Hey?
Do you feel you have dealt with it?
Look, the way I see it, I feel like there's layers to it, honestly. I feel like it's an onion. I feel like you take off the first layer, and then it's like, oh, you think you've dealt with it, but it's like, oh, wait, there's more. Yeah. No, I think it's layers. It's not like...
I like that.
I don't think you just, it's like, oh, I have this issue, and it's like, oh, yes, I prayed, and we spoke, and I've forgiven him, and all is well. Yeah. Like, there's going to be certain triggers, and certain things are going to happen that's kind of like, it's like a little reminder. So yeah, I feel like it's a working process. It's not, you don't just get healed straight away, I feel.
So for you, look, right, just listening to our stories.
Yeah.
And maybe for you it's different.
Oh, very different. Like,
but I understand where you came from to say there's also that element when you're young and
Yes.
going to boarding school and you
Yes.
feel you're left out and all that.
Yes.
But I'm also intrigued to try to hear from you to say what has been, because it's good to speak the negative, but
Yes.
I tend
But
to
there
love
is-
to also bring the positive.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So I would also love to hear from you, like for someone who's had it differently from us,
Oh, way different.
what has stuck out the most when you look at your parents and some of the things that you say, in as much as they've been absent in certain areas,
Mhm.
but they've been present in certain aspects.
Certainly.
What speaks out the most to you, and what do you really appreciate? And given the opportunity that given your mom and dad are listening now, what would you
I
love to,
hope they are listening because this is a great good
what would you love
segment.
to put across to them, or to emphasize, to say, keep doing this?
To be
This
honest,
is,
there's a lot of things that I would actually like to say and applaud them for, and also encourage them, and also teach them, and also highlight to them. And I think the first thing I would start with is the positives, because at this moment the positives definitely outweigh the negatives of our experience is compared to you guys. I think the love that they share and the perseverance to have a better life is the first thing. Even though obviously I was in boarding school and all that, the hard work that they would put into even keep up with everything that was happening around me, despite me understanding, is definitely something that was an eye opener for me, because I think I was in year 8 or year 9, and like what you were talking about, some top A students out there that had parents that couldn't even afford to bring them to school.
wow.
And then there was me, who obviously have my little petty resentment and little issues and everything, and a young kid and you're growing up, you'll be like, oh, my parents are doing this. And then it's that point you see that this kid is brighter than me, but he's not in school, and I'm in school.
Wow.
I'm fed,
Yeah.
I'm everything's provided,
Mm.
despite of all the strangest things that are happening around us, So it's definitely something that a lot of people, we have to appreciate, especially those that have both parents.
Yeah.
We have to appreciate the perseverance and the love and the care that they put into it. Even though they will not do it the right way, but they still provided something and provided a life that is far beyond something they even experienced. Because I'm pretty sure if we ask our parents, they have got different stories of how they are bring, and some of them talk about how they would go to to the fields, to Norima and all that stuff. We've heard all the stories, but it's the love and perseverance. That's the first thing. And the second thing is maintaining it.
Wow.
Because a lot of parents maintain the love and the care, but you start to see the rift. And that is when it leads to, obviously, like in your case, your parents divorcing and all that stuff. And unfortunately for your circumstances, your mother passing away. A lot of people that have both parents, we tend to take that for granted. We tend to take that for granted because we have got this perfect vision. It's supposed to be like this. If it's not like this, then they hate me. They don't like me, And they're absent in me anyway, so let me just shut myself up and do all these things.
But do you think we also make a mistake to think that our parents are perfect?
I think so. Well, I think as children we think
Because
parents should like
nobody's
have it
perfect.
you
together.
see, look,
Nobody's perfect.
there's one thing that you said that just brought a whole level of wisdom as we were talking. You spoke about some parents can drift and some continues.
Yes.
Which reminded me a statement that my father said to me. He said, competence, consistency is better than competence.
Yes.
Because a person who gives 60% every day
Yes.
is better than a person who gives 100% once a month.
Yes.
But as children, we also forget that parents can get tired in as much they're being consistent with us,
Exactly.
trying their best. Because I had to learn to tell myself when it comes to parents being absent and making
Yes.
silly, funny decisions. I had to say there's nothing that's right or wrong when it comes to parenting.
Yes.
But it's all a learning curve. Because in their eyes they think this is the right thing.
Yes.
To them they think this is right.
Yes.
But to us we are seeing it differently. But don't forget that it's a learning
It's a learning curve for them. Which is, it's interesting that you actually brought that.
So for you,
It's actually
it will be harder because we will hold naturally, like me and Irene, we can
Yes.
choose to naturally hold you to say,
Yes.
if we see you doing dodgy style, we'll be like,
Yes.
but look,
You have
brah,
both parents, right?
Like, brah, come on, man.
Exactly.
But that's not always the case.
and I'm
What
glad-
about parents,
I'm
kids
glad
that
you
actually
said
have
that.
both their parents and then
I'm
they
glad you brought
become
that.
like criminals?
Uh,
And they actually came from a very loving home.
No, I'll tell you something. It's
It's true, it happens.
it's an individual thing.
Yeah,
But I've seen it just here in Australia.
yeah.
I have friends of mine that have got their parents here. You see certain things. There's certain behavior where it's an individual thing, but there's some other traits where you can see it's a benefit of having that parent in them. Like
Right.
I've known Luke for a very long time, and all the time that every time I see Luke, I keep reminding him that I'm proud of who he is. I've seen him so him saying my parents are consistent, and I see it in him. And you see these things, there's always, they reflect to each other because there's somewhere you saw it and he's still doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas you see, for us, like what you've said, to say, there's a point in time where you don't trust men. You see, there was a time where I actually battled with it for a very long time, and my prayers were like, God, if I ever get married, don't take my wife. Like, it was a thing that where it was just in the back of my head where I felt like, what if I go through what my dad went through and what's going to happen to my kids? So sometimes life does certain things that subconsciously it traps us into a certain trail.
Yeah.
But you have to shake it off.
Yeah.
But for me, hearing him, it's good. It's something that I also think it's possible. I can emulate it.
It is, and I'm glad you guys brought these other ideas and little topics again. And from the emphasis that I was saying about the perseverance, the love, and the consistency, obviously having friends and people like you around me I get to also hear a perspective that is outside of the perfect world that I would in, right? Because in that sense, I think the main point is we are going to have to continue to improve, learn, adapt, and improve. There's many topics that we can gather up in, but I think it's about learning and improving and being a universal person. Being universal so that if anything is to happen, let's say based on some of the things that we discussed, if anything is to happen, you know how to handle it, even though you not have the tools and the equipment for it, but you have an idea of how you're going to start up and handle it. And I think it's very, very important that in making that change, we try to have the ideas and try to find the equipment to deal with all these things that will face us. I think it's a very, very important thing, which is something that I learned not only from just my parents, but also from you guys and everybody else that I've definitely talked to. Because life can hit you at any direction, and you just have to be ready with it.
Wow. Yeah.
You just have to be ready for it. So I mean, as much as they seem that they're perfect and all that stuff, like nobody's perfect, but we all have a choice to be perfect. And I think if people put their mindset in that category, we can definitely go a long way. We can definitely go a long way in many things.
That's profound. So in other words,
Yes.
it's also important when you feel you've been left out in certain areas,
Yes.
that you can also find parents that you admire and sit down and more like be mentored
Yes.
to become a better person. And
I think that's actually important.
yeah, it's important for
It
a
is.
lot of young people to be mentored, for young guys to find good fathers that can speak life in them, there's this morning when I was thinking about this, like I'm a Christian and I was just praying around this program. Something spoke out. I just kept hearing a word where I felt like in my heart, you never run out of options. That's one thing that I kept like thinking about this morning to say, you never run out of options, and there's always people that are willing to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I must say, it's been so beautiful hanging out with you guys. Well, my advice to some guys who are in the same situation with me, where you've lost your mom. Obviously, growing up, I felt the absence of my mom, and it affected me. But I'm grateful, and I would never take away what my aunts have done to me. They've played a big role. They were my mothers. I had to submit myself to them and to be accountable to them. Because losing a mom, it's a void that can never be replaced. But always know that there's so many women out there who can love you at the level of your mom. So my encouragement is just find a family member, be it a church, be your aunts, someone who you can speak to, someone that can understand you. It's like literally last week I was talking to my aunt, and she was talking about marriage and settling down and finding out where I am, and she always prays for me. She sends me monthly messages. So that's what I always say. You never run out of options. There's always someone out there who's willing to love you and to be there with you. Just don't hide, because there are some days that will hit you hard when Mother's Day comes, or when life goes wrong, be it a relationship, and you genuinely need your mom to understand you. There's always situations that will challenge you along those ways, but find someone that you can just submit to, someone that you can allow to play that role, the motherly love in your life. For me, that's how I've dealt with them, and I feel like it's important, and it's also good. I think for guys, it's also because for me the other challenge that I had is we're 4 boys and 1 girl, and my sister was the oldest, so I had a challenge because I grew up not interacting with girls, and people don't believe it, but I struggled when I was young. I couldn't talk. I was shy. I couldn't talk to girls. I couldn't relate to
both.
them. It's hard. But then you start to have good people around me. Like I have people that I appreciate. Like Miranda, we always talk, we joke, we laugh. I look at her and I feel like she's a blessing in my life, and those are some of the people that now I look at and I feel like God has brought in my life for such a time to teach me certain things and to laugh. So it's also good to be surrounded with people and to learn. For me, I had to learn the opposite sex in a hard way. But it's a journey. You never arrive. You keep making mistakes, pick yourself up, you keep going. But the secret is to keep reminding yourself, I need to learn. When you need to say sorry, you say sorry.
Wow. In my case, I will have to say to all those kids that go to boarding school that far away from their parents, don't despair. There's always beauty in the middle of struggle. Okay, your parents are doing the best that they can, and if you that there's anything that's missing, please do talk to your parents. Don't keep these emotions to yourself. Don't create all these conclusions and scenarios and all that. Speak to them, love them, care with them, care for them, and definitely learn. The basis of it is learn to be better, so that when they see that change in you and they learn what love is from you, which is a beautiful thing, they will adapt, they will listen to you. And above all, don't look too much onto the circumstances, because you might be missing out on something that is great that's happening to you, that's keeping you alive. So please, love your parents. Don't keep quiet. Don't despair. Don't cancel them. They're your parents at the end of the day. And teach them. And be consistent. Don't get tired. That's my advice to you all guys.
That's good. I think my advice to other people that are in a similar situation with divorced parents, look, it's not easy, but again, I think it's really a personal decision. I think you have to come to terms with it. First thing to do is just accept it, accept what's happened, and I think try to understand the bigger picture. Like, don't just. I feel like I was young and I was just like, everyone's just stupid and nobody loves me. I was just like checking all my panties. But I think try to understand the bigger picture. Try to understand what your parents are actually going through, what led them to, for it to happen. And then I think when you're ready, try to rekindle and actually sit down, just have like open communication and actually just talk about it and try to rebuild the relationship, because I feel it's important. It really is. But I think I was very lucky. Like with them divorcing, like I had good relationship with my mom and my siblings and other extended family members, and really good friends, like very supportive good friends. So I think I was lucky in that instance. And then when it was time to rebuild the relationship with my dad, I mean, it wasn't easy, but like now looking back, it's good. I'm glad I did it. But I think it's important. Do it, because unforgiveness and bitterness is not a good thing.